Okay, let's get started. I'm recording now, right? Yes. Okay, set and costume design. Exciting. So, our woman of the week is Jacqueline Duran. She's a British costume designer. She's worked on a lot of well-known films. She's won an Oscar for one, and has been nominated for a lot. She's worked on Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, Little Women, a lot of period pieces where costume and set design are very important. So as I said, she was nominated for an Oscar and won Best Costume Design, and also won a BAFTA award for Best Costume Design as well. She worked on Beauty and the Beast, which I think is really cool because that had a lot of neat costume design, but definitely just one of those people that has made a lot of headway in terms of costuming and is very well known. Obviously, I know we talk a lot about women and like being part of the industry and making strides. Costume design and set design is one of the places where women very much excel and have a big place in the industry. So it's awesome to see people who are even more making statements, creating amazing costumes and winning awards for their achievements. So we have a guest speaker, Lindsay Campbell. She's going to give us all of her knowledge as she is a very amazing costume designer, production designer, set designer. So I'm basically going to hand this over to her. I'll wrap back up in the end where we have some, little events that we like to share with you guys, but I'm going to hand it over to her. So Lindsay, whenever you're ready, take the stage.
Hello, everybody. How many of you guys are interested in costume design or set design? Oh my gosh, that's what we love to see. Um, okay, so I'm gonna first start talking about set design a little bit, just because that's more of a broad topic, I feel like. But set design is really important, often overlooked, especially at Emerson. And a lot of people will say we don't need PD, and that's just a lie. PD is the most important role because it literally builds the entire world from the ground up. Um, and what I love so much about being PD is kind of being able to take a script and then take the words that are on that page and be able to curate a selection of props and create an entirely new space that doesn't exist in the world already, and it's simply for the film. Um, and I think that, like I said, Emerson College really does a terrible job promoting production design and costume design for film. And all of my experience I've had was from working on sets and through EIV, and I'm actually doing production design for a film, a BA that Emily is producing actually on Instinct. And we're shooting later today. But yeah, moving on to costume design, which is what I am more interested in. But costume design is so cool because what it does is it introduces you to the characters before they even say or do anything. And a lot of when we exist in the world, we notice people and how they dress first and foremost. And first impressions are really important to how we view other people and kind of our immediate opinion of them. And so being able to take that and use that to create characters, because clothes can signify somebody's wealth or lack thereof, where they come from in around the world, culturally. Also who they are in terms of style. If it's a modern day, if it takes place in 2020, depending on if they're dressing with current trends or they're dressing not with current trends, it says a lot about who that character is as an individual. And I think that is something that's really fascinating about being able to design costumes, because it allows you to build these characters so that the audience, as soon as they see them, can have an idea of who they are. And another thing that goes hand in hand with that is color theory. And I don't know how many of you were here last semester, but we talked about it a lot with lighting And it's sort of the same kind of concept where clothes, even if like colors are not necessarily important to the story, they can exude a lot of different emotions in the audience. So they may not be related to the character at all, but can relate to like the scene and different elements. Like for instance, in the BA that I'm production designing and costume designing, I have our main actress in a maroon leotard, which no one else is wearing maroon except the headmistress, who she has a lot of like conflict with. And so it's a really interesting way to be able to tie those two characters together, like subliminally. And so the audience will subconsciously see the link between them, but it's not so blatant as like in your face, and it's not like explicitly said to the audience. Um, and that also goes with just like general emotions like green for like envy and jealousy, and also like earth and a lot of like earthy tones um can signify like who, like someone's down to earth or they're very like connected with nature. um and then also, you know, like warm tones like reds and oranges can be either like lust or also like anger or like a ferocity. And then there's, you know, blue for sadness and all of that. And something that I don't know how many of you guys have seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but her hair is not like technically costume, but it's still really fascinating that her hair changes color based on like where she is emotionally throughout the movie. And I think that that's something that, like, obviously the first time you watch it you don't notice it as like a conscious thing that you're noticing, but as you watch it you get these like subconscious messages through the fact that her hair changes colors based on where she is at emotionally, and it says a lot about where they are at in the movie. um and then also something that's just like something that I'm personally really interested in is period pieces and historical costuming. um because I think that historical, like there are definitely a lot of period pieces coming out recently, within the past couple of years, that span all different centuries. But clothing is one of those things that changes so often, and it's so easy to tell what time frame something is happening in based on the clothes people are wearing. And so being able to use these like historical clothes to tell a story, but also like teach the audience. I don't, it's definitely just something that is a very niche part of costume design. But if you're interested in history as well as like the art side of film, I think that period pieces offer a really cool space to sort of creatively deal with history and express to the audience and sort of teach a wider audience about like what it was like to dress and like live in the past. Um, and then something else that I just wanted to touch on was this is a really small note, but I wrote a paper on rom-coms a couple years ago, and I read an article that I found fascinating because it talked about how it was arguing for feminism in rom-coms. It was talking about how the costumes in these rom-coms were super modest and were very like full coverage, and there was very little skin being shown of the women in these rom-coms, and it was arguing that like sex sells but it doesn't, like you don't have to show all the skin to get the guy. And I think that that's definitely something that is really interesting when you think about working with costumes and portraying these characters that are as real life as possible. And I think that a lot of like reality of like how people actually dress gets lost um, in certain movies with costuming because they tend to fall into the sex sells category where they're just trying to show as much skin as possible. And that's not to say that that's like a bad thing. I think that there are definitely characters in which that should be the case because it is such a character defining sort of outfit. But kind of thinking about the subtle nuances of how people actually dress and the differences in how that is translated to film just because of like the male gaze and all of that. Um, and yeah, those are all like my general notes. If anyone has any questions or just wants to like talk about costuming.
Yeah, I think this would be a great space to like ask Lindsay, because I know I have questions, but that's just me. Um, like anything that you want to know. I know I would love to be a PD person, but I've just never done PD. So I think my question for you, Lindsay, is like, how do I get started? What do I need to do? What's my process?
Emily, what an excellent question. I honestly like going out for I can't speak to any of the costume design and production design classes at Emerson as I have not taken any of those classes. Um, but I started had my first costume design credit for EIV last fall. And then after that, I like that was the instance where I fell in love with costuming. And so I think that what's like really terrible about Emerson is that the only real way to gain experience in production design and costuming is to go out for crew calls. But also, I wouldn't let any lack of experience stop you because when I went out, I had like, I think one credit. I had worked as a PA on a BFA in the spring, my freshman year. And then the fall of my sophomore year, I went to EIV hiring and I went out for costume designer because I was like, you know what, I want to try this. I'm going to push myself. And then I ended up getting hired and I found this love of costume design. And so I think that although it's really terrible, going out for crew calls is really the only way, especially for costume design, since all of Emerson's costume design classes are in the theater department. And it's really a pain to get into them because you have to get permission from the theater department head. And then that's just, it's a whole process. And then there's like 2 production design classes. But I think going out and also this, I was an art team member and I had done costume design when I came out to interview for Emily's BA that she's producing. And I went out for art director and I was like, I really have never PD'd anything in my life. But I was like, I want that experience and I want to push myself. And then I ended up getting it and it's been an incredible experience and it's taught me so much about production design and costume design. And I think that, yeah, I'm just talking in circles at this point, but.
Anyone else have any other questions? I have more questions. I have a lot. I'm excited about this, but anyone else want to go?
You can also type them in the chat if you want to just type them. But
If you feel
Yeah, I'm sorry I like threw a lot of information at you guys without any slides. I've had a really busy week and I honestly didn't have time to make a presentation.
No worries. Can I ask another question? My other question is, like, what would be your biggest challenge that you've run into on set as PD? Like, has there been any sort of reason maybe that's pushed you away from it or made you not feel like this is what you're supposed to be doing, and how have you overcome that challenge?
That's such an excellent question, Emily. Thank you so much. Honestly, the biggest problem I run into is people, like students at Emerson, who are under the belief that like PD doesn't really matter and PD's just like there to get the props. Because my first EIV show that I costumed, I barely did any of the creative work because my director came to me and was like, this is what we want everyone to wear. And it was a moment I was really frustrated because obviously like I wanted to learn about how to like come up with costumes myself. And so that was definitely a moment where I was just like, this feels like I have no real creative input and I'm just here to get the things and like send the links to the producers. But obviously that didn't stop me and I still fell in love with costume and production design. But I think that, like I've said, and I'm going to continue to say this because I think until Emerson changes their tune, Emerson doesn't foster an environment that is helpful for PD or costume. And I was talking to my friend who's doing a BA, and he said they were talking about all the keys that you need to have, like key positions on set. And the professor even said, like, you don't really need a PD. Which, like, PD is the most important role on set. They literally build the whole entire world. Without PD, you're looking at an empty room. So I would not be afraid, even though Emerson makes it really difficult. If you're interested in costume or production design, you can talk to me. I can help you try and find avenues to get into it. But also, I would not be afraid to go out for crew calls if they have a position for costume design or production design, or even art team member. Julia, I see your question here. Okay. Yes, Riley, I agree wholeheartedly with that statement.
Julia said,
but
what's your process to costume props, thrifting, making it from scratch, buying other? Once you've decided on what you want, how do you go about getting them?
Well, that depends a lot on the production. Because I've definitely been on productions that have a big budget. And in that case, it's mostly trying to find things that will get here in time. Because obviously, like when you do production at Emerson, you have like very few weeks, unlike the real world where you go through pre-production for months and months and months. Emerson, it's like 3 weeks to do all of pre-production. So it's really hard, and sometimes you have to forego certain visions in order to get things delivered on time, especially in the times of COVID. I'm a real advocate for like going to the actual store and not buying online, but that's really difficult now. So it's been a lot of like purchasing from Amazon. And thrifting, I will say thrifting is a really good option for like period pieces if you're doing within the last handful of decades, because a lot of people will donate like their grandparents or like their parents' old clothes from the 60s, 70s, or 80s. And so that's like sometimes you can find really cool, really good quality stuff in thrift stores that's not like too expensive and obviously better quality than a reproduction that's made today. And then also something that I feel like is also underutilized at Emerson is the prop warehouse. And because once again, Emerson makes it seem like that's just like a theater thing, and they make it really hard for films to like sign things out. But I got majority of the big, I think all of the big props for the BA that I'm production designing from the prop warehouse, which is obviously free, and all you need is like transportation to get it from the prop warehouse to wherever you're storing it. But that's a wonderful resource that Emerson has that you should all take advantage of if you can.
Do you like to make any of your like props or stuff like that? Have you had any fun experiences doing that?
My gosh, Emily, yeah, what a question. I actually made, I can actually show you guys. I have them sitting over here. The sheets for, once again, the BA that I'm production designing, I had to make these bloody sheets. And so I just bought like plain white sheets and then splattered them with fake blood. I'm a really big arts and crafts person, and I love making things by hand. And I think if you can, making things by hand adds just like, you know, like a little special touch. But also sometimes it's really difficult. And I will say making those sheets took way longer than I thought. So
Anyone else?
anyone else?
Oh yeah. Oh, here we go. Another question: how is the experience with communicating ideas with the director and having conversations around what could work and what might not work?
What a fantastic question. It honestly depends on the director and how much like freedom they're giving you, because I've worked with directors who, like I mentioned before, just told me what they wanted and they were like, this is exactly, everything is all planned out, like we know exactly everything that we need. And then I've also worked with directors who were like, I obviously have my vision, but I'd love to hear yours. And in that, for the directors who are more open-minded to hearing the production designer's ideas, I find that making like mood boards are really helpful. And I know we had talked about this for, oh my gosh, Riley, you're so welcome. Thank you for listening to me blabber on about costuming. But I think that mood boards, we talked about this with pitches, I believe. But like mood boards and lookbooks can be really helpful in sort of figuring out the mood, obviously, but like the emotion you want to convey with either a space or with a costume. And then sort of having that like physical, like visual evidence to show the director that then you can talk through, because obviously like saying words is so much different than like seeing a picture. But I found overall it's been a lot, like I'm very respectful because a lot of like Emerson people write and direct their own things. So I find that it sometimes is important to be respectful that the director also wrote it and it kind of is their like baby and they might not want to change certain things. But I think if you bring enough like arguable points to the table about why you think that it should be a certain way, most directors are fairly understanding and will like listen to you.
And I also think like in terms of directors, like if you guys are interested in going into directing, keep that in mind in terms of how you're going to talk with your PD. If you have a vision and you know what your costumes want to look like, that's great. And we're not saying like don't do that, but it's also neat to hear other people's opinions and hear what their take is on your script or your idea. Because obviously, if you're a writer director, you've been working with this for so long that you kind of have this ingrained in your vision. And it's sometimes nice to have someone take you out of that a little bit and be like, oh, wait, I kind of saw it this way, and talk about it a bit more. It's also really nice to be like, here's my vision, my mood board, and then have your PD make their mood board and then kind of make one that collaborates both of those into like the final mood board. That's another fun way as well.
Yeah, I agree wholly with Emily. There's definitely nothing wrong with knowing what you want as a director. And I think that it's really important to have an idea of where you like the look of the film that you want. but I think offering a space for collaboration with your PD or your costume designer, because obviously they're there to bring ideas to the table and be those key crew positions that offer a ton of creative input on the world building and sort of the whole entire like look and atmosphere of the set.
Awesome.
Julia asked, does PD ever collab with the DP to determine the look or color, or is that communication usually only through the director? I have personally never worked with a DP in like pre-production. I have worked with DPs on set to sort of figure out how the logistics of like camera movement is going to interact with the set, and how some things might have to change from like the original concept because of space limitations and all of that. But I think it ultimately depends, like all of this kind of depends on how collaborative each department wants to be with each other, and if there like is a space for that collaboration, if that makes any sense. Yes, Jillian.
Hey, so I was wondering, like, do you think, because I've worked, on creating some of my own costumes and stuff, and like we definitely like utilized sewing like to make it work. But how good, like, do you have to be like a good seamstress or artist like to make costume design work, and like to be good at that?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I actually sew a lot in my free time, but I haven't sewed any costumes for any sets that I've worked on. I think that where sewing comes in really handy is one, like tailoring, because if you're thrifting things or anything like that, being able to just like take in seams or shorten hems, things like that. Which also, if any of you guys are like interested in learning about sewing, I would love to, if you want to like hit me up with any questions you have, I would love to instill some knowledge. I'm not very good, but I have made a bunch of my own clothes. That's just a side note. But in terms of costuming, I wouldn't say you really have to be good at sewing at all. It's a helpful skill to have. And especially like for period pieces, if you're gonna make your own clothes, because that a lot of like, especially if you're doing like 19th century, early 20th century, a lot of those garments don't exist anymore. And so you have to like make them from scratch. But also in terms of being a good artist, I would really consider myself a terrible artist. I'm not really good at drawing anything. I prefer mood boards just because I think that unless you're confident in your drawing ability, sometimes that can take away from like the idea you're trying to convey. And so playing to your strengths there is really helpful. But it's definitely, you shouldn't feel limited to be a costume designer if you can't sew or you don't know how to draw, because there are so many other ways to get around that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if anyone else wants to ask a few more questions, we're going to give a few more minutes for that. And then we're going to do a little bit of a fun activity with breakout rooms. So if anyone else has any other questions, please shout them.
Any questions at all? No question is a stupid question. I was once in your shoes and I knew nothing about costume design or production design. Is it only the director that PDs communicate with? There's also a lot of communication with producers, because producers ultimately work with the budget and the timing of everything and all of that. But I would say, in my experience, it has been mainly with the directors and the producers for PD. And then also there's, obviously you have to talk to the actors when you're a costume designer. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there was an experience I had where I worked. Mhm. There was one, I was only art team on this, so I wasn't like head PD, but I did work on a set last year where we built an entire cave from scratch in the prop warehouse. Um, and on that set, I know that our production designer talked a lot with the director and the DP in terms of the best way to make the cave so that they could get the shots that they wanted. But that's also a very niche sort of, when you start from scratch, you have a lot more leeway in sort of what you can do and how you can make things because you're making them entirely out of nothing. But yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. Round of applause for you.
Thank you for listening to me, you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or Instagram me, or if you want to email Women in Motion, they can connect you with me. But please do not be shy about reaching out. I know Emerson is really terrible about supporting production design and costume designers, especially for film. And so I would like to be a resource if I can.
I love how your whole rant was Emerson sucks.
Okay, but I mean, like, they do. I didn't even know that like production design was like a thing that I could do.
Yeah. It's very true. So we're going to do a quick little activity. I want to break everyone up into just basically, I think 3 rooms. And let me share my screen real quick. And I know we did mood boards last semester, so I'm trying to do something different, not another let's collaborate and do mood boards. I kind of want to workshop a scene in terms of doing sort of some sketching, coming up with set design. You can go to auto draw, where you can like use your mouse to sketch maybe the worst thing ever. Like if you want to draw a chandelier, you could do like one line with like 3 dots at the top. And then at the top of the website, it gives you options that actually like it appears. I can show you an example of what I'm talking about. So say I wanted a clock and like, I'm gonna go like that. Look, a clock comes up and you can put that right there. So it's pretty neat. And you can like move it around, you can make it smaller or bigger. So I was just kind of thinking I'll put you guys in breakout rooms, and if you want to choose maybe one of these scenes, you can come up with your own. Basically just draw it out, very rough sketch. But if you were thinking from sort of like a set design perspective, what would you need in terms of props? Would you want, for a ballroom, chandeliers? Would you want a staircase? Would you want clocks? Would you want like a bureau? Would you want a carpet? Sort of things like that. And then when you guys are done, just take a screenshot of it, and then we'll put it in the chat and look at everyone's, or have you guys.
Can I also, Emily, I just want to make a really quick point about drawing, going back to Jillian's question about being an artist. It's also a lot of, if you look at production designer sketches, a lot of them are very loose, like rough outlines of objects, and they're not super detailed. Because obviously, like when you draw something, your brain can pick out what it is, even if it's a loose sketch. And so that's something to also, obviously not, this doesn't really pertain to this activity that Emily's having us do, but I just wanted to bring that up as a point, that you don't have to be like this super detailed artist to draw like room sketches. You can do really rough like sketches of tables that are literally just like an oval with 4 legs, just to convey the idea.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here with this activity. It does relate to it, is like, even if you are a crappy artist, you can use things like this. Even if you don't have this ability, just do a quick sketch. I mean, people understand if you're drawing like a circle with 2 lines and some numbers around it, it's pretty obvious that's a clock. Everyone kind of knows, because that's like a universal symbol. So if everyone wants to just plug this, www.autodraw.com, I'll also put it in the chats for all the breakout rooms. But I'm going to send you out really quick into breakout rooms. Just chat about maybe a scene that you want to do. What I put up there was just some ideas. You don't have to use that. And just try and make a fun little idea. You don't even have to make it like in the place where it's going to be. Just like if you were making a ballroom scene, what props would we need? What set design would we need? That sort of thing. So I'm going to start making breakout rooms. Okay. I'm gonna do 5 and then, oh wait, this is really, I'm very much having issues with breakout rooms lately and it's so interesting. Okay. Let me just make sure I've assigned everyone. I feel like I just deleted a room and now someone's not in a room. Okay, here we go. Okay, awesome. I'm going to open all rooms and come back in about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna pause the recording real quick. Recording again.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. How'd that go? Did you have fun? I had fun. I made a bedroom just because. We'll just wait a bit for everyone else. Thanks, Kat, for sharing yours. If anyone else wants to share theirs in the chat, we would love to take a look at it. Ooh, these are neat. Oh, I like them. Hi, guys. Welcome back. If you want to share yours in the chat, we can show them if you want. Okay, awesome. I'm going to, well, first of all, any questions? Anyone have any comments? Anyone enjoy that or didn't enjoy that? How do we feel?
I loved it once I knew how to use it.
Yeah, it takes
fine.
a moment. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to share some of these that you put in the chat because they look really good. Let me get them up. Okay, we're going to start with this one, which looks like a nice little like room with the window, or that's a mirror with some plants. Anyone from this group want to talk about their idea for this?
So unlike Erica, I never mastered this program, and I did it on my iPad so I could use my Apple Pencil to draw it. I thought that might be a little easier. So I never figured out the whole layering thing in AutoDraw. But this is supposed to be a mirror, so you can imagine that this is the last thing we drew. So it's on top of everything, but it would be pushed back. This is a ballroom, so again, the chandelier is blue. Couldn't figure out how to change the color. And then we have some table. There'd be other candles. We were thinking like Bridgerton with the whole like, you walk in and there's like mirrors and lights and everything's fairly reflective. There's like vases with flowers in them. So very romantic feel. We were thinking a period piece kind of ballroom with this. But again, my skills were not up to par.
Awesome. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing, Kat, and your group. Okay, we will move on to another one. Let me share screen. And we have this one. Anyone from this group want to talk? I love this whole like park playground theme going on. The colors look amazing. Anyone want to chat about what they were going for with this kind of set design?
It was supposed to be a park. This is about as far as I got with my skills. I felt bad because I had to share screen because share screen was disabled for everyone else.
So sorry.
So, so we have one thing of grass, but yeah, the rest of it, it's supposed to be a park, playground, place, happy, fun, good times.
I love it so much. Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna stop my share there and then go to another one and share this one. I like this one. We got the chandelier for sure. The staircase, it's a good touch. I like the staircase a lot. Anyone from this group want to chat about what they were going for?
I'll let anyone in my group, if you want to talk. If not, I'll say what we did. I mean, you can see I'm such a bad drawer that auto draw couldn't even help me figure out. On the table is supposed to be a chocolate fountain, and that's supposed to be flowers next to the table. It started out as ballroom, and then it kind of morphed towards prom, but that's where we were.
I love it. The chocolate fountain. What an incredible touch. No, I didn't think about that one. Amazing. Okay, let's move on to another one. Let me get this up. And this one's very colorful. I'm enjoying this one a lot with the ball gown that we have here. Look at that. That's fun. Anyone from this group want to talk about what theme they were going for, why they chose these certain designs?
I mean, we went with like, the ballroom sort of, more or less. We've got the chandelier, we've got a throne. I just added some stars just for pizzazz. Use your imagination to imagine that staircase is a spiral staircase, as Juliana suggested. And we went with like purple's a very royal color. And then Selin said maybe we should do some yellows because it's like an opposite color. So they like clash, like a Cinderella situation.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Julia and Juliana and the rest of your guys' group. Amazing. I don't want to share mine because mine is not that great. It's just a nice little bedroom with the cheetah rug that I made.
Share.
Okay,
Share.
fine. Can
you really be worse than what I did?
I liked your chocolate fountain, Emily. I don't know what you're talking about. Here's mine. I made a bedroom. They didn't figure out the string light situation, so this is hand-drawn string lights for you all. But we love that. Anyways, thank you all for doing this fun little activity. I thought this would be neat, and also just something that like you can then take with you in your toolbox of fun things to play around with when you have time, which who has time nowadays? But if you do and want to do a little bit of drawing, it would be fun. In terms of events, we have an upcoming movie night. I know there's been a little bit of confusion about when the movie night is. It is technically at 9 o'clock when we get on the Zoom. You can watch the movie from 7 to 9. You can watch the movie beforehand, but 9 o'clock is when we would like you on the Zoom to discuss it. So we're doing Witches, which came out pretty recently, and it's basically a lot about the costume design, the prosthetics, the makeup that they do, that we really are trying to focus on and showcase in this film, since obviously we have the set and costume design meeting today, and then we're going to have the prosthetic meeting coming up next Friday. So if you want to join us on March 3rd at 9, we will be doing that. Take a picture. We'll be promoting it more. Also, an event promotion. We did this last week, but just once again, Asian American is doing cast and crew calls. If you haven't gone out yet, I would totally recommend it. It's going to be an amazing experience, and it's one of our short films that we are actually sponsoring this semester. I would recommend doing that. They're looking mostly just for people to model and pose, and then those to help with lighting and stuff like that, and sound recordist and gaffer and DP. So, some neat positions that you could definitely go out to. Also follow follow Kira's Instagram because she's been promoting this quite a lot. It's down at the bottom here. And then we also have another short film that just got green lighted. We picked them up and they're called The Train Home. It's a new Women in Motion sponsored short film, and the log line for it is: an anxious philosophy student has an insomnia-fueled hallucinatory experience that forces her to rethink her purpose in the world. I absolutely enjoyed hearing their pitch. I'm really excited for this film. It's headed by Emily, and I would recommend emailing her with any sort of resumes and a time to schedule an interview. I think today is the last day that they're actually doing key crew calls. Henna is also helping her on this. They're looking for quite a lot of positions, which is really great. And we wanted to bring this to you guys. I would recommend just reading through this or following their Instagram. They have an Instagram. I think it's the trainhome_whim, which you can check out. And I know they're really excited about this project. I'm really excited. They're pretty ambitious, which is exciting to have sort of a more ambitious project that they're hiring multiple people on. So if you have any questions, let me know. Email this email or follow their Instagram as well. And then last but not least, if you guys went to the producer, outside speaker, Alessia, she promoted this 48-hour film project, which actually she sent us the info for. Basically, if you want to create a film in only 48 hours from pre-production to post-production and have a product, like you have to have a product at the end of this 48 hours, this would be an amazing opportunity. It's one weekend, I think in April or May, and they have early bird registration, which is starting on March 2nd, and a meet and greet on Zoom that takes place on March 4th. If you want to learn more information about it, you do have to pay a little bit of money to get in. It's not a free thing, unfortunately. But if you get together with a couple people, maybe you guys are able to raise a little bit of money, pay for this registration, and then do the 48-hour film, which it is specific to New England, so it would be near Boston. You guys can do that and then actually have a project after this weekend. And you also can win awards, which is really cool. So it's an opportunity to be recognized for your workmanship and your creativity. So that's about it for all we have today in terms of our meeting. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. And did everyone get the attendance? Did that all happen? Awesome. Great. Well, oh, Rachel, yes, I can put the attendance back up real quick. Let me do that. Oops. Here's this. But otherwise, you guys are free to go. Please stick around if you have any other questions. Let me know if you're excited about any of the events or want any more information on that. And thank you all so much for showing up today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Have a
guys.
good
Bye.
day. I just had a quick question. I missed the meeting last week, but I wasn't sure like where to take the quiz for attendance for it, I think.
Yeah, so it's in the comments underneath the YouTube video. Usually we put it up like a little bit later than when the videos post. So if you just want to check back on our YouTube video, which is linked in the newsletter that Kat usually sends, it's like the WIM Weekly, it should be there. You click on the YouTube video and then the quiz will be in the the description section.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Meeting reminder email. It'll be like upcoming meeting. And then if you go down, there's just a link that says, go to this link and follow the quiz.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.